Skip it up and that up. Ah, shit, he's loose! What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is Rich of Review Tech USA, and Wolverine is hard for Jared from Hard News. Ta-da-da-dum, ta-dum. Ta-da-da-dum, ta-dum. So the game you're looking at today is the PlayStation 3 version of Fear 3, and to be honest, this installment of Fear is probably the most disappointing out of the trilogy. Don't get me wrong, it has really good gameplay, the graphics are okay, the action is fast-paced, it's fun, but it doesn't feel like Fear. It feels like a military first-person shooter with slow motion and a couple cheap scares in it. I personally wasn't a fan of the online multiplayer. They tried to be original, but it just wasn't my cup of tea, and at the end of the day, it's very tough to recommend this to anybody, especially with how flooded the first-person shooter market is. There are a ton of better options out there. The only people I will tell to get this game are people who are die-hard fans of the Fear series and want to know everything about the storyline, which also is mediocre in this game. So I have to give huge shout-outs to two big YouTubers today for sending me all this awesome information on the upcoming PlayStation 4. Those two YouTubers will be Frazzleberry and AC Killer Z. I'll have links below in the description to their YouTube channels. I suggest you check them out. So there are rumors aplenty spewing forth about the upcoming PlayStation 4. Some of the news is very good news and some is very bad, and let's find out what that is. Let's start with the good news first. The PlayStation 4 project is being codenamed Orbis. I don't know if that's really good news, but it's a strange name, so that's cool, I guess. The games for the PlayStation 4 can be bought on either a Blu-ray or downloaded via the PlayStation Network, and the current specs are going to be an AMD 64-bit multi-core CPU, how many cores yet is still up in the air, and it's going to have an AMD Southern Islands GPU with a 7900 series chip that's going to be capable of displaying a resolution of 4096 by 2160, and it will be capable of displaying 3D at a full 1080p. And now on to the bad news, and the bad news is very, very bad. For one, the PlayStation 4 will not be backwards compatible with the PlayStation 3, and like the rumors spinning for the next generation Xbox, the PlayStation 4 will try to curb the used game market. If you buy a disc, it will be locked to your PSN account. If a person buys a PlayStation 4 game used, they will only be allowed to play the demo of the game, and they will have to purchase a license to play the full game from the PlayStation Store. On top of that, to play the games that you owned and purchased, your PlayStation 4 will always have to be connected to the internet. You will not be able to play any of your games if your PlayStation 4 is not online. It's a similar DRM tactic that Ubisoft used previously. So what do I think of all this? I think the good news is awesome. I think AMD making both the CPU and GPU is a very good thing. The fact that they're using a 7900 series GPU, which is the top of the line chipset right now from AMD, is awesome. And compared to the rumors for the next generation Xbox and the Wii U, the PS4 seems to be the most powerful system. But now let me give you my thoughts on the negative rumors surrounding the PS4. First off, the fact that it will lack backwards compatibility sucks, but it isn't surprising. For one, including a cell processor in the PS4 to make it backwards compatible would make the system very expensive, and they don't want to go down that route again like they did with the PlayStation 3. You remember how disastrous that launch was. And secondly, due to the fact that they're going with a totally different CPU this time from AMD, would make it impossible for Sony to emulate the cell processor with the PlayStation 4 hardware. And on top of all that, I'm sure that Sony is still going to want to sell PlayStation 3 consoles. And if a PlayStation 4 was backwards compatible, no one would buy a PlayStation 3. Yes, like I said before, it sucks the PlayStation 4 won't be backwards compatible, but it was expected due to the architecture of the new system, and on top of it, Sony still wants to profit off the PlayStation 3 after the new console is released. But now, onto the whole anti-used game thing that Sony's trying to pull. What are you doing? First off, why are you taking away the freedoms of the consumer? Now, like I've said before, I have nothing against physical media, and I have nothing against digital distribution. And I don't agree with people who will buy a newly released game used just to save a couple bucks. That is very detrimental to the industry. But to destroy the used game market completely, which is going to die due to digital distribution anyway, is ridiculous. You're telling people what to do with their hard-earned money. If I want to purchase a game that's a couple years old or sell a game that I own that's a couple years old, I should be allowed to do so without any restrictions. I shouldn't be treated as a criminal because I want to buy a game that's a couple years old. old, or want to sell a used game that's a couple years old that I no longer use. Besides pirating, I should be allowed to do whatever I want to with the original copy of that game. And no offense, Sony and Microsoft, the used game issue should have been dealt with this generation, not the forthcoming one. Physical media is in its twilight, and I guarantee you in a few years most of your profits are going to come from digital distribution. So honestly, you're wasting a lot of energy on something that's not going to be a relevant issue in a couple years. So what's your take on the rumored PlayStation 4 specs? Are you excited about some of them? Are you annoyed about others? And do you care about the system possibly not being able to play used games? Make sure to rate, comment, favorite, and subscribe. And if you have an interesting news story, make sure to send me a link via private message either on G2P or YouTube. And if I use the story, I will shout you out in the video and put a link to your channel in the description.